What's up, everyone? This is Draco. I'm coming at you from Fishhook. We have a little kayak race going on here. I'm going to share some crazy insights with you today about the world's population and how it was that we had this massive explosion in population over the course of the last century. Of course, because we've just now surpassed 8 billion hungry mouths to feed. So how do we get here? How do we go from about 1.6 billion people in 1900, and now we have 8 billion people in 2023. In fact, there's some other crazy statistics, like if you look at 1960, there were 3 billion people, and between 1960 and now, obviously we've added another 5 billion. Actually, what that means is between 1960 and now, we've added more people than have ever been born in the history of mankind. So something happened. What was that thing? So I'm going to share what that was. Okay. So something around the time between 1900 and 1920 happened, and what it was is that it's related. Now, what this thing was is related to the color of the sky. That's right. But it's not what you think. You see, the word azure comes from the word azote, right? Which means does not support life. And why is it called azote? So the word azure, or an azure sky, because they're referring to nitrogen. Nitrogen is the most abundant element, or molecule actually, as it's N2, in the atmosphere. And it's a very tough nut to crack. You can think of it like a very difficult, like almond, where you have to crack it open to get what's good inside. Now, what I mean by that is nitrogen has a triple bond, and cracking those bonds is very hard. So there's very few things that actually take nitrogen out of the air and use it. Now, why is nitrogen an important molecule, or element rather, is because nitrogen, the element, is used in all the protein in our bodies. So without nitrogen, there would be not only no protein, no cocaine, many interesting substances actually use nitrogen, but yeah, there would be no life on Earth because it's used to synthesize proteins. Proteins use it, amino acids, polypeptides. So in order for there to be, let's say, a lot more life on Earth, there needs to be a hell of a lot more available nitrogen. That doesn't mean nitrogen that's got those triple bonds that are hard to break, you know. It means that there needs to be nitrogen available in the biosphere. That is all of the things that are alive on Earth, right? Everything from, let's say, this nice little plant over here, this nice little fine boss, right? Or that nice tree over there, or myself, okay? We're full of nitrogen. So in order for a population of anything to explode, animals, humans, whatever, there needs to be the source of available nitrogen, and they call it fixed nitrogen. Now, normally what happens is nitrogen is synthesized inside these little these little bacteria that are inside these nodules here, these rhizomes of certain plants. That's where it comes from. It's very slow. It's a slow process, and so yeah, economically it would be very valuable if you could find a source of or a way to get nitrogen out of the air, because you could, throw it on the ground and grow more plants because they need nitrogen, and those plants could be eaten by more animals because they need that nitrogen. That's where they get it from, and so on and so forth. And then we eat those animals and those plants, and we're able to grow more humans. So something happened where there was a lot more nitrogen available. And what that something is, and this is the insight a few years ago I had to click on, is that there's a gentleman, not a nice person. I write about him here in this in my website, whoarethebaddies.com. And his name is Fritz Haber. He was a chemist. He brought in the challenge to find a way to fix nitrogen out of the air. And turns out it's an extremely difficult thing to do. You have to take the nitrogen, right, out of the air, right, purify it. That means take out all the other gases, compress it to 400 atmospheres, so the pressure of the air pressure we have here, 400 times that, heated up in the presence of an iron catalyst made of iron, and then introduce also hydrogen gas. And under that high pressure, that high temperature, with that catalyst in those conditions, ammonia is made. The magic of the cracking of these three bonds, these covalent bonds that nitrogen has, occurs. And then you have the nitrogen combining in an equilibrium reaction and making ammonia. Now, ammonia is something you can take. It's an amazing substance. You can actually burn it, or you can react it with air, with oxygen on a platinum catalyst, and it makes nitric acid. And then you take that, so you kind of like burn the ammonia, then you take that, which is that's nitric oxide, and then you react that again with ammonia, with the same stuff that you burned, and it makes ammonium nitrate. And ammonium nitrate is a salt. It's a solid at room temperature, dissolves in water, and actually plants can take it up as a fertilizer. You can throw it onto the ground and plants can take it, absorb it, and generate tons of protein with it. Amazing. Of course, another thing that ammonium nitrate is, other than the giver of life, right? It is a synthetic fertilizer, but it is something which can be used to like amplify life, because it's a fixed and useful form of nitrogen that organisms can use. We can't, plants can. By the way, if you try and eat ammonium nitrate, it'll probably kill you. It will definitely kill you. But plants take it up and then they can generate proteins from it, right? So we can then ingest those proteins, and therefore it's something which introduces nitrogen into the biosphere. And when we have that happening at a high rate, it actually increases the number of animals that there can be on the earth. Now, humans have, I want to say something else too. Ammonium nitrate has another side to it, which is very interesting. It's a duality, if you like, of the universe, almost like a cosmic joke. It is used to make all the high explosives that are used in every war that you've ever known. Like all modern war uses ammonium nitrate or derivatives that come from the Haber process to make high explosives. So not only is it a life giver, but it's also a death bringer, right? It's life and death in one substance. Amazing duality. Amazing thing how the universe works. So what happened around that point, that inflection point, which I'm going to show you in a little graph here, right? Where the population suddenly went from just going like sideways and just, ticking away quite nicely, quite naturally, right? Where humans then interfered and brought a pile of nitrogen out of the air, out of this blue air, into the biosphere. And then bam, we have this logarithmic expansion of the amount of humans there are on this earth. So that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. That's why everybody you know is here. That's why most animals that we breed and eat and, around on this earth, around us in the modern world, are alive because of Fritz Haber, who, by the way, as another aside, is such a baddie. He was the father of chemical warfare. He's the first person to invent a chemical warfare agent and then actually deploy it in the First World War. So not a good guy, motivated by profit and glory and all the rest of that stuff that generally doesn't end well for anybody. But for the human race, what it ended up in is this massive population explosion. But what are the implications of a population explosion? Well, let me tell you this. That little invention, that cracking of the nut, taking azote, the nitrogen out of the air, and turning it into a substance that can be introduced into the biosphere and then amplify life, right? That resulted in an absolutely astronomically huge logarithmic growth of the number of humans there are on this planet. And then that resulted in the reason that you think the way you do today. It resulted in an education system that is set up in order to produce the vast quantities of stuff, of shit that people want to buy. So all of the things that we need are made in these factories, and they're made in a mass production kind of way. And each component, if you like, in that mass production, right, each piece that's put together has to be made by a specialist. So what happens is that in order to produce vast amounts to feed the demand of people, what happens is that the education system starts to feed that demand with people that are the specialists who can do those things. And so our education system isn't a broad, kind of wide-ranging, mind-opening education. People are designed to be little replaceable units. You have here yourself a machinist, you then have a lawyer, an accountant, you have an engineer of a certain type, you have a chemist of a certain kind, and it starts to, those people fit in to this world of production that we have in order to be able to produce it. Enough of the stuff, of all the junk that humans want to buy. So that's a direct result of the invention of Fritz Haber and the Haber process, and then the proliferation of huge numbers of these factories. By the way, they made a ridiculous number of these factories. And one other problem and another key insight, which is something to think about, is that where the hydrogen comes from to feed this Haber-Bosch process, because you need hydrogen, which is available abundantly right here in water. However, problematically, it costs a lot of money to get hydrogen out of this here water. So we don't bother with that. We take it directly out of fossil fuels. So methane and fossil fuels are what is used as the feedstock to create the hydrogen that then is used to make the ammonia, and then that is then burned and reacted with itself to make ammonium nitrate. So the feedstock is a fossil fuel. It is a finite resource. A finite resource is used to feed the entire planet, right? So what happens when that stuff runs out? What happens is that we're all gonna die, probably, or maybe not. Human ingenuity is amazing, and I'm sure we'll dig our way out of it, but it won't be getting more fossil fuels to feed the Haber-Bosch process. It will probably be using those fossil fuels to feed the Haber-Bosch process to make lots of bombs and blow up as many people as possible until we're at a sustainable level. That's probably what's going to happen. If you're a pessimist, if you're an optimist like me, you'll think, hey, so we'll figure it out, right? But we better get on with it, because presently, several percent of our energy production, we're burning like tons of fossil fuels all the time, right? All over the place. But the thing is that quite a sizable percentage of that is used to make food, because it's used to create ammonia in the Haber-Bosch process and used to introduce nitrogen into our biosphere and amplify the human population to even further extents than what it has been today. So there's other stuff to talk about around the implications, but maybe guys, put in the comments what you think some of these implications are of a huge population, right? Not only that we have to feed it, not only that, humans have increasingly specialized themselves, narrowed their minds, and the education system is there to feed a huge machine that produces all of the stuff that we want in the world, right? All the junk we need. What other implications are there? So let me know in the comments. If you found it interesting, that's great. I appreciate you sticking to the whole thing. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next video.